In this Liga MX Iceberg, we will be taking a deep dive into the murky side of Mexican soccer and its shady business, as well as other controversies involving several soccer players, which have scandalized all of Mexico. This goes beyond the hysteric and mystical side that these different Mexican soccer teams have. Call them superstitions and beliefs that border on the paranormal. So without further ado, get comfortable and hope you enjoyed my very first iceberg based on La Liga MX, the Mexican Soccer League. Liga MX, known today as the top tier of professional football in Mexico, has its roots in the early 20th century, when the sport began to expand thanks to English workers who came to the country through mining and railway companies. In those years, football was practiced in an immature way in areas such as Pachuca, Orizaba, Mexico City, and Guadalajara, where the first organized clubs were formed. In 1902, the Mexican Amateur Football League Association was founded. Considered the first official football tournament in Mexico, it included teams such as Pachuca, the Mexico Cricket Club, and British Club, founded by foreigners. Over the years, the passion of the sport grew, and more Mexicans began to join these teams, giving football a national identity. Mexican football underwent a great transformation in 1943 when the clubs decided to professionalize the tournament. This is how the First Division of Mexico was born and is the direct predecessor of the current Liga MX. The founding teams were América, Marte, Atlante, Austrias, España, Necaxa, Atlas, Guadalajara, and Veracruz. This step marked the beginning of a new era. Players began to receive salaries and football to become a mass spectacle. For decades, the First Division consolidated its structure, attracted investors, and the number of teams expanded. Finally, in the year 2012, the Mexican Football Federation decided to modernize the league and relaunch it under the new name of Liga BBVA MX. This change sought to improve the organization, transparency, and international projection of the tournament. And to this day, Liga MX doesn't only represent a sporting tradition, but also a reflection of the country's history and social evolution. Its humble origins linked to the working class efforts and popular passion remained the foundation of Mexican football today. A few months ago, I did a video on Mexican soccer urban legends, and this one was also included, and it was based on the event that took place on March 5th of the year 2022. Mexican soccer was stained in red. That day, the Corregidora Stadium, home of Los Gallos Blancos of Querétaro, that translates to the White Roosters of Querétaro, became the scene of one of the most terrifying events in the history of national sport. What should have been just another clausura tournament match between Querétaro and Atlas ended up being a nightmare that left indelible marks. It all started in the 62nd minute of the match. A fight broke out in the stands between rival fan groups, the White Roosters of Querétaro and the Foxes of Atlas. In a matter of seconds, the insults turned into fights and then into stampedes, which quickly swept between everything. The videos that circulated on social media showed the unthinkable. Families running desperately, children crying, injured fans lying on the ground, and also individuals that were no longer breathing or moving. Local authorities claimed there were no casualties, but eyewitness accounts told a different story. Rumors about a much higher number emerged in forums, social media, and research sites about deaths in the stadium to hide a national crisis. There were even talks of fans that were claimed to be disappeared, and rumors quickly began to circulate about an alleged cover-up to protect the image of Liga MX and the state government. The images of the stadium after the brawl were absolutely chilling. Clothing and jerseys on the ground, scarlet stains on the ground, in a brief silence that would give you goosebumps. Since then, the Corregidora Stadium has been labeled as a cursed place. Many workers have claimed that during the evenings you can hear screams or footsteps in the empty stands, giving us the idea that as if the lost souls of the victims who lost their lives that one afternoon have not found peace. This incident has to be one of the most macabre events to have occurred in Mexican football in a long time. The incident resulted in severe sanctions against Querétaro, dismantling of their fan groups, temporarily kicked out of the stadium, and punishments to the directors. However, for many Mexicans the measures came too late. This tragedy revealed a dark side in Mexican football, but more than just a simple fight, led to a demonstration of chaos that can't be hidden behind a sport that in theory should unite people. Although Mexican football presents itself as a clean and competitive spectacle, beneath the surface persistent rumors have emerged that cast a shadow over it. Allegations of match fixing, an issue that for many years has generated suspicion, complaints, and uncomfortable silences within the league. The first suspicions began to circulate in the 80s and 90s when sports journalists and former players spoke of matches where some stuff didn't add up. Inexplainable referee errors, strange goals in the last minutes, or teams that let themselves get beaten. This to benefit others. Over time, these rumors became solid, especially with the growth of bidding houses and the economic power surrounding professional football. One of the most notorious cases was La Liga de Ascenso, which is the second division, where several teams were accused of receiving orders to alter results in order to favor promotions, relegations, or the clandestine betting businesses. Although never officially verified, various independent reports have revealed testimonies from players who claim to have been pressured to slow down or intentionally provoke penalties. In Liga MX, there have also been suspicious and decisive moments where the referee ignores obvious fouls or sanctions with minimal severity plays that change the course of the championships. The fans call it the Liga MX script, referring that some tournaments are predetermined before they are even played. Some claim that certain big teams receive preferential treatment to keep them competitive and ensure television viewership, as well as stadiums. Various journalists as well as sports reporters have hinted the existence of manipulation networks linked to international gamblers who operate through intermediaries in Mexico. It is also believed that some lower division matches have been more blatantly interfered with due to lack of oversight, as well as the small audience and the ease to corrupting low-wage players. The Mexican Football Federation has always defined these rumors, arguing the lack of conclusive evidence. However, match-fixing scandals in leagues since, as the Spain, Italian, and Asian leagues have made it clear that these types of practices do exist worldwide. In Mexico, silence and lack of investigation only fuel the mystery, and even though there are no public confessions, the doubt persists. How many matches did we actually watch? And how many were perfectly planned? In Mexican football, teams don't only compete for titles and glory, but also to keep secrets well buried. Behind the stadium lights, the cheering of the fans, and the million-dollar contracts, there is a dark side that is rarely talked about. Several journalists and former executives at various Liga MX clubs have manipulated figures, inflated contracts, and hidden suspicious transactions. There is a talk of phantom players, of signings that never materialized on the field, but did in numbers, and even of money triangulation between reserve teams or second division teams. Former players have confessed that they were forced to sign confidentially agreements to avoid reporting acts committed inside the locker room or during training camps. all in the same name of club discipline. On the surface, Liga MX is sold as passion and spectacle, but at its deepest levels, rumors point to a web of secrets where money, influence, and fear dictate the rules. Perhaps that's why whenever a scandal threatens to come to light, everything suddenly shuts down, and the fans go back and look at the ball, without imagining what is really hidden behind the uniform. In the world of Mexican football, player signings are presented as major celebrations. Of course, if a good player arrives and is also full of incoherence and smiles in front of the cameras. But what the public doesn't see is that behind many of these transfers lies a web of corruption, favors, deceptions, and money laundering that have plagued the nation of football for years. For decades, several sport journalists have denounced that signings in Mexico do not always respond to the talent or performance of the players, but to economic and political interests. Former executives have confirmed that on multiple occasions, representatives or promoters place footballers in clubs thanks to million-dollar commissions that are distributed under the table between managers, coaches, and agents. Many of those payments never appear in the team's accounting books. Another secret that is talked about is the trafficking of foreign players in different periods. The Mexican Football Federation has detected the falsification of documents and nationalities, especially among South American footballers who arrive with altered papers to be registered as naturalized Mexicans, thus freeing up foreign player slots. It is a practice that, although sanctioned, continues to occur at some levels of professional football. There is also a phenomenon of the phantom signings. Players are signed but never set foot on the field, yet appear on the payroll. It is said that this tactic has been used by some clubs to launder money or divert resources, especially in teams with business ties. The transfer system has also been criticized for its lack of regulation and transparency. Contracts often include absence clauses, restrictions that prevent players from freely changing to another club, which for years fueled the so-called gentleman's agreement clause. Although it was officially eliminated, many claim that it is still being applied covertly in various institutions. In short, transfers in Mexico have a dark side that the average fan rarely sees behind each signature. There may be more than just a simple sports transaction. Political interests, money laundering, and career manipulation. Mexican football is not only experienced on the field. Behind the glare of the spotlights and goals lies a long list of scandals involving players that tarnish the image of Liga MX. Stories of excess, corruption, and even crime that expose the dark side of those who should be sports idols. One of the most remembered cases is of Cuauhtémoc Blanco, an emblematic figure of national football, who during his career was involved in multiple controversies, fights with coaches, insults to referees, and later his leap into politics, where rumors about links with criminal groups further fuel his legend. Although nothing was ever proven, the scandal remained engraved in the collective memory. There is also the case of Luis Matador Hernandez, an icon of the Mexican national team, who years after his retirement was accused of alleged million-dollar debts and legal conflicts. One of the most recent scandals from October of 2025 was of Chivas All-Star player Omar Bravo, who was accused of SA to his stepdaughter when she was just 11, and since she had proof due to recording his actions through her phone, and screenshotting messages, he still remains in jail and to this day waiting for his trial. Players like Marco Fabian, Alan Pulido, and Carlos Salcedo have been the eye of the storm because of their lives off the field, where luxuries, love controversies, and clashes with the press are almost as constant as their appearances. However, scandals are not limited to the entertainment world. On several occasions, footballers have been investigated for domestic violence. Let's say consumption of certain things, or links to crime. Some have disappeared from the media radar after being dismissed by their clubs, without it ever being fully known what happened. One of the most shocking cases, and one that has marked a milestone in Mexican football, is the case of Omar El Gato Ortiz, former goalkeeper of Monterrey, who was arrested for participating in human trafficking topic. Player scandals are proof that fame, money, and pressure can unleash the worst impulses, as well as debauchery, since the freedom allows them to do what they want and fall into many excesses. This right here shows another dark side between soccer players. Behind the passion and chants that fill Mexican stadiums, there are those who claim that professional soccer holds secrets much darker than the public imagines. For decades, rumors have circulated about Liga MX clubs being linked to occult symbols, rituals, and esoteric beliefs, supposedly used to attract good fortune or protect teams from defeat. One of the most persistent rumors points to the use of amulets, religious figures, and even hidden altars in dressing rooms. Some former players and members of the coaching staff have confessed anonymously that before some important matches, certain coaches would ask for offerings, candles, or specific figures to be left inside the locker room. Some associated with superstition, but others speak of rituals with hints of witchcraft. In the north of the country, for example, it is said that a famous club hired a healer to cleanse them of bad luck after a string of defeats. In another case, a former physical trainer for Liga MX revealed that he saw symbols carved into the benches of the locker rooms, signs that resembled those of European occultism. Although there was never any solid evidence, images leaked sports forums fueled the theory that certain teams believed in forces beyond sports. An interesting and extremely strange fact is what happens with Cholos de Tijuana. All players are required to play in red cleats. Its founder is obsessed with the number 3 and always greets people by making the figure sign. Its stadium has a capacity of 27,000 for the spectators and has 33 boxes. Their mascot, which is usually at the start of every game, has the number 333 on its back. A rather curious superstition. In 2018, an independent media outlet even reported that a top division board had a private altar with images of the Santa Muerte, where uniforms were supposedly blessed before decisive matches. None of this has been officially confirmed, but the mystery still remains. In Mexican football, there are stories that seem like they're out of an urban legend. Teams that reach glory and shortly afterwards crumble or disappear. Over the years, many fans have spoken of a supposed curse that haunts certain clubs that achieve unexpected titles, only to end up in a heavy debt and caught up with scandals or disappearances. One of the most remembered cases is of Veracruz champions in 1946 and 1949. But which later became synonymous with sporting tragedy and corruption. Every attempt on having a major comeback ended badly. Unplayable depths, sanctioned managers, and depleted workforces. Many fans believe that the club was cursed, condemned to relive its history over and over again, until the team finally disappeared in the year 2019. Another example is Atlante, a historic club in national football that experienced glorious moments in the 90s and early 2000s, but then lost its way. The teams moved from Mexico City to Cancun. Financially problems and downfall to Division II fueled the idea that victory always came with a hidden price. Just like that. The Team Morelia, who became champions in the year 2000, and 2 decades later was moved to Mazatlan, Sinaloa, and became Club Mazatlan, founded in June 2nd, 2020. Many claim that this curse was not supernatural, but the result of economic interests that destroyed teams as soon as they reached the top. Even in the lowest divisions, there's similar stories to teams that win, get promoted, and then mysteriously vanish. For decades, rumors have circulated of Mexican soccer that cast doubt on the purity of the sport. Do the referees really make their own decisions? Or is there someone pulling the strings behind the scenes? Conspiracy theories about the control of the referees and the results have been part of the Liga MX folklore. One of the most deeply rooted beliefs holds that certain large clubs receive preferential treatment for economic and media reasons. In this version, television networks, sponsors, and the interests of federations would allegedly have the ability to influence referee decisions. It's not uncommon to hear fans saying things like, "It wasn't a penalty," or "It's offside," where they couldn't let the team be left out the playoffs. And if you're a fan of this league or football in general, you possibly heard of this more than once from people who watch this sport. But in a way, it's normalized that a certain referee or certain team has favoritism, and examples abound. Dubious expulsions, goals disallowed without explanation, penalties given away in the final minutes, or matches in which the referee seems blandly biased towards one side. Many fans claim that these patterns are not a coincidence, but part of a system designed to keep the spectacle under control. Another theory points directly to Arbitration Commission, which has been accused on several occasions of punishment or rewarding referees. According to the tournament's rules, it is said that the best performing referees were not always the ones who get promoted the most, but rather those aligned with what the upper echelons of football expect. On social media, some users even linked controversial decisions to international multi-million-dollar bets, suggesting that certain matches could be manipulated to benefit bookmakers or outside investors. Although, nothing has actually been proven just yet. In the world of Mexican football, more than one tournament has been marked by triumphs, defeats, and unforgettable goals. But according to Alfonso Poncho Sosa, behind the sporting appearance, there are interests that go far beyond the field. In 2019, while managing Atlético de San Luis, during their fresh welcome from the second division to the first division, Sosa reported that he had been a victim of the so-called of goal, a network that allegedly manipulates signings, results, coaches, and managers to obtain economic gains outside of the sport. The case gains relevance when remembering that Sosa had already successfully led the club to the first division. And despite that he was dismissed by the Potosina board, despite having a highly acceptable performance, in an interview he stated that it was all fixed, referring to his replacement ahead of time, as a part of a power structure that operates behind the scenes. According to his statements, promoters, agents, and people close to the club's president had decided that his departure was imminent, and that his continued presence bothered the system, which already had the next coach appointed. The term "goal" was popularized by journalist Amir Ibrahim, who used to describe the network of promoters and authorities that allegedly devoured Mexican soccer. They inflate contracts, divert resources, place players and coaches, and build an architecture for controlling the football business. In Sosa's case, he also reported that 2 players arrived to the club with promoters linked to that system, which raised alarms about shady dealings behind the scenes. What makes this story frightening is not only the accusation of sports manipulation, but the idea that any coach can be completely sidelined, not because of his results, but because of his refusal to play the corrupt game. This case invites us to question the origin of competitiveness in the Mexican League, raising uncomfortable questions, and above all, leaving a feeling that in this sport nothing is clean, nothing is legal, and everything is controlled down to the millimeter, and that undoubtedly causes a lot of uncertainty. Ultimately, the case of Sosa occupies a place within the most hidden part of the iceberg of Mexican football. What the fans see on TV is just the tip of the iceberg. What they don't see is what really happens behind the scenes. To finish off this video, I decided to add this to the iceberg as one of the deepest things I can find. The discovery of remains near Estadio Akron, one of the venues for the 2026 World Cup matches in Mexico, has sparked a wave of concerns about the deep crisis of violence and disappearances in Jalisco. Since 2022, search groups operating in Zapopan have been reporting the continuous discovery of human remains in various locations around the stadium, showing that this is not an isolated find, but an extensive zone of mass graves. Instead of being associated solely with football, the Chivas Stadium has become a reference point in reports about violence, organized crime, and state failure. For families of missing persons, the area around the facility is not a World Cup district, but a site of endless excavations, exhumations, and hopes that among the recovered remains, they will be able to identify their loved ones. According to the group Guerreros Buscadores de Jalisco, led by José Raúl Servan Garcia, at least 456 bags containing human remains have been found in the area around Estadio Akron. So far, the most recent discoveries were recorded in September 2025 during excavations, work carried out by families of missing persons in the presence of authorities, showing that these are still active search sites, not long closed cases. The bags contain whole bodies, fragments, and skeletons, belonging both to people who died recently and to victims from 2018, 2020, or 2022. The macabre discoveries are not limited to a single plot in Zapopan. In the Pantheon near Chivas Stadium, about 130 bodies were found, and in the Nextipac and Plan de la Noria areas between 2018 and 2022, a total of 89 bags with remains were discovered. In Arroyo Hondo, also located in Zapopan, 48 bags were recorded during the same period. According to social organizations, all these sites are still active, graves where searches continue. The leader of Guerreros Buscadores de Jalisco, José Raúl Servan Garcia, emphasizes that state and federal authorities are trying to hide the scale of the crisis related to disappearances. He points out that the government is more interested in the economy and image than in the citizens, and even removes informational flyers from collectives so that visitors to the stadium do not notice the severity of the problem. Servan, who is searching for his son who disappeared in Tlajomulco de Zúñiga, has become one of the most recognizable voices of families of the missing. In the media, he speaks openly about how the discoveries near Estadio Akron reveal the scale of violence in the region. His words, "It's a shame the World Cup will be held here, and there is so much evil here," has become a symbolic commentary on the situation in which the world is preparing for a football celebration, not seeing what is happening a dozen kilometers away. According to Servan and other activists, the announcements by authorities that excavation work is coming to an end are inconsistent with reality. In their view, the goal is to speed everything up so that before the World Cup everything looks normal, rather than a real solution to the crisis of disappearances and identification of remains. And that was it for today's video. Feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. This was Creepshow, and I wish you all a good scare.